Yoli, do we know, Yoli, do we know about the other commissioners?
Let me text him real quick.
Exciting. We can go ahead and get started then.
Good afternoon. Notice of a public meeting of the City Commission of the City of Brownsville. Pursuant to Chapter 551, Title 5 of the Texas Government Code, the Texas Open Meetings Act, notice is hereby given that the City Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas, in accordance with Article 5, Section 12 of the Charter of said city, will convene a regular meeting on December the 6th, 2022 at 5 p.m. in the City Commission chambers located on the second floor of the Brownsville City Hall Old Federal Building located at 1001 East Elizabeth Street, Brownsville, Texas. Members of the public who submitted a public comment form will be permitted to offer public comments as provided by the agenda and as permitted by the presiding officer during the meeting. A recording of the meeting will be made and will be available to the public in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. Mayor, it is 5:02. You may call the meeting to order.
All right, thank you. Welcome, everyone. Call the meeting to order.
Next item is invocation.
Let's all stand as we go to the Lord in prayer. Father God, we thank you for your love, your grace, and your mercy. And Lord, this time of year, help us to remember what the season is all about. That we celebrate the birth of your Son, our Lord Jesus Christ. Lord, when we see the Christmas trees, help us to remember the purpose that you came here to earth in the first place was to take our sin on that cross, being a wooden cross, Lord. Lord, when we see the lights on the tree, help us to remember that you are the light of the world. When we see that it's an evergreen tree, help us to remember that your purpose was to give us eternal life when we truly repent and come to you. And Lord God, I ask you to bring us back to your word, back to obedience to you, so we can receive the discernment we need for the trying times ahead. And Lord, for this meeting here today, we ask you to lead and guide our mayor, our city commissioners, and everyone who speaks, Lord, for the very best for the city of Brownsville, and bring us into unity around you in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. And Lord, now we have a short time of silence where we can all add our prayers to what has already been spoken. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Now the pledge.
States of America, to the republic for which it stands, a nation under the text to Jesus. One state under God, one indivisible.
Next item, we have public comment. The first public comment, Susan Rubalcaba.
Hello, welcome. Just please tell us your name and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Susan Rubalcaba. Exactly 2 months ago, the Tenasca report was released by this commission. As a result, we found that under the current CEO, current and/or past executive management team, current and/or past commission members, current and/or past PUB members and past mayor that the people of Brownsville were lied to and stolen from. Approximately $135 million taken from the city with the poorest citizens. We also found out that the commission has a disturbing lack of control and oversight of PUB operations, lack of oversight with budgets, hiring, firing, salaries, raises, and purchases, and a lack of control over board members. The commission revived the Charter Review Committee to immediately, diligently, and swiftly begin the charter amendments to address these shortfalls so that it could be included in the 2023 May election cycle. The citizens heard it loud and clear, yet after 4 meetings, we have made little to no progress. I stated before that the Charter Committee meetings look like a bad tennis match, with ideas and personal opinions flying back and forth, but no one scoring any real points. The committee is tippy-toeing around PUB. Let's be clear. The bond rating that PUB is so worried about should be the least of their concerns. The people are irate, and every day that there is no progress to the reimbursement of our money, the charter amendment and personnel disciplinary actions is every day that we the people get closer to seeking legal intervention. Each and every one of you appointed one of these members. Maybe you should meet with them and review the expectations. They are making it so much more difficult than it really is. They should be prioritizing the amendments of the board appointments, board removals, CEO and executive team, salary and raises, and budget review in that order. At the end of the day, the commission, did I turn it off? Or can you still hear me? Okay. At the end of the day, the commission must take a more aggressive approach into rectifying the mistakes made by PUB. We all understand that disbanding PUB probably wouldn't be in the best interest of the city, but as it is now, the question remains, is PUB really serving the people better? Or are they running it as a personal enterprise for their purpose of self-serving? As of today, what do we have? We have an implicated CEO on day 50 of his 60-day paid vacation with no update from the current board as to what will be happening on December 16th, 2022 with John Brusiak. We have no update on the payback of any of the Tenaska funds, $29 million from PUB and the $11 million from the city. We have no board member removal placed on the agenda for vote, even as the conflict of interest is screaming in the background, and no progress on charter amendments. The people are losing hope and losing faith. So get on the phone, schedule some meetings, and with all due respect, for God's sake, stop focusing on getting some Guinness Book of World Records for the most pledges for a pet vaccination in 24 hours. I would much rather be nationally recognized for the most potholes fixed in a 24-hour period. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next one, we have Erasmo Castro.
Hello, sir. Welcome. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. Erasmo Castro, and thank you all so much for giving us this opportunity to be here tonight. And let me say that one of the things that I think that a lot of individuals are getting ready for, something that I think that even y'all are getting ready for, is for the Christmas holidays. I see some of y'all dressed in awesome gear, and that's pretty cool. A lot of folks here in the city of Brownsville are having a little tougher time with Christmas than others here in the city of Brownsville. And our concerns continue to be the same. I think a lot of us feel that the wheels are turning too slowly in regards to a lot of the things that, we had already come before you to request. Some of the things that we come up to request are very, very basic and very, very simple. Simple in the sense that they make sense. A lot of them had to do, we were hoping that we would be able to get more resources for the citizens of Brownsville during these tough times because of the situations that have transpired because of the excessive utility bills. And some of the bills that have come in, have decreased a little bit, but not significantly enough to cause a major impact for a lot of the folks here in the city of Brownsville. I think that people appreciate that there are going to be no disconnections and no late fees charged. I actually had a conversation with individuals from PUB this week, and they made mention of it. I think that there's still some tweaking that needs to be done in regards to paying the bills at PUB. I think we had spoken with the mayor and with Commissioner De Los Santos in regards to maybe upgrading the app so that people could pay more than $500. Because, you can't pay more than $500 on the app. And a lot of our bills are coming out to be more excessive than the $500 amount. So the little things, but I hope that you take into consideration, during this time, especially during this time, that, we're still looking for the resources. And we have seen some that have been placed up by PUB. And, they do recommend other resources out there, but they won't come in time for a lot of folks, and a lot of individuals here in the city of Brownsville will not have a great Christmas. We know that the CRC was started. We've followed some of their meetings. We probably haven't attended as many as we'd like to. We don't feel that the progress there, and maybe we'll get a little bit more information now that the chair of the CRC committee is here. Maybe we'll get a little bit more information in regards to the progress or the next steps. But we've seen some of the meetings, and we just don't feel that maybe they're getting it. They're not understanding the reason why they were asked to come together, and we are not seeing that progress. We don't know if there's other reports that have been shared with you all in regards. We hope that you do is to keep their feet to the fire, and that the reason why they were brought, is to affect the change that we're all hoping. And have a great holidays, and thank you all.
Thank you.
Next item, we have work sessions. Item number 1, depository services evaluation criteria, work session.
Good evening, everyone. Honorable Mayor, City Commission. My name is Tania Lopez. I'm the Accountant 3 that oversees the Treasury Division. And today I'm going to be talking about the depository services for the City of Brownsville. Based on feedback received from the City Commission regarding the public funds depository services for the City of Brownsville, the following proposal is being presented for any additional feedback. Part of the feedback that we received from City Commission was to give opportunity to all respondents to submit the best and final offer along with the software presentation, local presence in the customer support, and the opportunity to explain the interest programs. We're going to be looking the following items, which is the purpose of the depository services, the previous criteria, the proposed criteria breakdown, and the improvements on our request for proposal. The purpose. Why are we seeking new depository services? The city intends to minimize banking costs, improve operational efficiency, maximize its investments capabilities, and in accordance to the local government code, a municipality may approve, execute, and deliver any depository services contract whose term does not exceed 5 years. As you are aware, we have met the 5-year with our current depository bank, which is PNC. So this is why we're starting this new request for proposal. This is the previous evaluation criteria and how it was scoring. And this is the proposed criteria breakdown with the banking services fees at 30 points, which is unit price based on volume of transactions, and any additional discounts and or waiver of fees will be taken into consideration. Interest earnings, 30 points. Candidates must supply a rate quote for interest-bearing accounts, and an alternative interest earning method will be taken into consideration. Banking services capabilities, 25 points. Safety of city funds and securities, efficient utilization of banking services. An example will be for the safety, the positive pay on the checks and the ACH with dual authorization, and on the efficient utilization will be that the bank should be able to provide us enough reports for us to submit it for our auditors. And the safety and credit worthiness of bank, 15 points. Experience of the financial institution in providing similar services for other public clients. Proposed timeline for implementation of the contract, including activities and responsibilities of the city and the bank, and the description of institution disaster recovery plan. This is our improved request for proposal process. Number 1 and 2, it's going to stay the same. On number 3, after reviewing all proposals, all vendors are requested to submit their best and final offers along with presentation of the services. The scoring will be done after the presentation. And on number 4, selection of depository, after scoring, All results will be submitted to the City Commission for decision. Thank you very much. Any questions?
I do have a comment, and I know that Mr. Flores brought this to our attention last time, that there are some things that we need to comply with statutorily. So I just want to make sure that whatever it is we have to comply with, we do that for the next time.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next work session, we have presentation and update by the chair and or vice chair of the Charter Review Committee.
Honorable Mayor, City Commission, Evaristo Cárdenas, with your CRC. It has been put to us, our task is to come and amend some of the charter amendments on the PUB, when it pertains to PUB. That was our task. At our first meeting, when it was presented to us, our question was, why? Why are we amending anything in the charter which has worked since its inception? Our dialogue between our committee is open because we discuss many areas of our city or of the PUB charter. We're coming to, as you can see, what's on your screen. This is dialogue by email of topics that we all consider that are, that could change the charter, and it may be essential, but we're also having discussions with those that are involved in areas of the charter to where we don't want to start a ripple effect if we change one item or amend an item on the charter, that it may start a ripple effect and the bond issues may become a process, or later in a process that it may change. Or if we change another item on the amendment, that the percentage that the city gets from PUB may be lowered. So as we are still ongoing and having meetings with different aspects of people from PUB, to be sure that we don't get ourselves into a situation where if we amend something on a charter, that later we're not going to be paying for it. We are looking at making the process of putting someone on the board of PUB by a supermajority, and or having the qualifications changed to be sure that if within the qualifications, the supermajority may say that, you know what, this is a great person, but they don't meet the standards that have been in the criteria of becoming a PUB board member. There's other areas that we've looked at that we're still in the process of looking at. We have a meeting tomorrow with PUB again to be sure that by the time that we present it to y'all of the amended areas, that we are sure that it's not going to start a ripple effect onto other charters that are in the PUB, because we don't want to change something and then later pay for it.
Nambito, if you can just really quickly go back to that first chart. If somebody doesn't have any X's, does that mean that they don't
Well,
have it?
most of the dialogue was done within the meetings, and then for those that came up with other dialogues after the meetings, we submitted to our attorney for him to review and put it down, while as soon as he comes back to our next meeting, he'll have it down and we will review it again. That's where we're at. This is what that stipulates, the removal of board members. We've discussed that. I believe at the moment, it's one board member per year that can be removed for cause. The question there is, what's the definition of cause?
Well, I think that's a real slippery issue, and I don't think y'all really need to try and define cause. And you definitely don't want to put cause into what the voters are going to be looking at. It's only going to confuse things even more. I think cause is something to be opined on by lawyers or courts at some other point.
And that's what, that's our, where we stand at the moment is, what is cause? You
Mhm.
know, is it ethics? Is it, we're still in the determination of the wording, what is on the charter review for the PUB. The thing that they didn't want, I guess when it was written, is chaos, to be able to remove a PUB board member at will. That, let's say in case that some one of you appointed one and let's say 3 months later, y'all had a fallout and then you just said, you know what, let's remove them.
Right,
Because-
and I think actually the way it is now, the opposite is true to where it's almost like they're so insulated, they'll never be removed because it requires a unanimous vote from everybody.
Exactly.
And it doesn't even provide for any abstentions or anything like that. So I think I mean, what I would be concerned about is y'all just trying to look at it as an overcorrection. Just be reasonable about it because really, if you do something like a supermajority, you kind of take the ability of somebody to politicize it out.
Exactly.
Because, I mean, unless the whole entire commission politicizes it, but otherwise, I think it's reasonable to consider something like that.
So I have a question. I find your graph a little confusing. First
Yes.
of all, I find confusing that you said your task is for a charter review specifically regarding the PUB. Is that what we voted on? I thought it was the charter.
No,
review overall.
it's been explained that they have three buckets. One is amendments to Article 6 of the charter, which covers PUB. The other is any kind of technical cleanups that we need to be done, recommended by city attorney or city manager. And then the last bucket is any other items that need to be, tweaked for the betterment of the city.
So they could make recommendations for any area of the charter, correct?
That's correct.
Right.
But the CRC has taken a priority in addressing Article 6 first.
So it's important that your group understands you don't exist just for the PUB, you exist for the entire charter.
Right, correct.
And your graph had so many blanks in particular people's names, that implies they're not participating, they're not attending, they.
Well, no,
don't
no,
have to-
everyone's in attendance.
So then I don't understand the X's.
The X's are the emails that were sent in to the attorney.
I can,
Uh,
I can probably explain that, Commissioner. So what we did is we received just information from the previous meetings, but also we asked the directors that if after the meetings, they had additional suggestions for them to be submitted to the city attorney's office. Then we put those into a graph and we marked which ones were suggested by which director so that they could have a tool to see where some kind of consensus was and to which they had a discussion at the last meeting about. Ms. Zamora and Mr. Gonzalez, before the last meeting, had actually recommended that no changes be made to the charter, to Article 6, I mean, for the reason that there was an article released by Fitch Ratings that said that the bond rating was reduced as a result of certain uncertainties within PUB. And so that's why they didn't submit any by that meeting. But at that meeting, they actually had a discussion with the city's financial advisor to explain the interaction between any changes to Article 6 or the charter and its relation to bond ratings. So that's why there's, not that they didn't recommend anything, but they haven't recommended anything at this time.
And just for clarity, council, the CRC is going to be bringing us their recommendations, but ultimately it's city approved. If the city
Correct.
if we want to change anything, we can, right?
That's correct.
Correct.
And one more question with regard to these X's, because I think they're a little vague, because I don't think, when we're talking, just like the first one, appointment of board members, and we've got X's by 3 of those names, does that mean all 3 of those agree 100% on what appointment of board members is going to look like? Or is that just that each of them gave some type of feedback on appointment of board members?
So that reflects that each one of them wanted to change the regulations around appointment of board members. Then you have, it breaks it down to simple majority, supermajority. And so, for example, Mr. Cascos said either or, right? This was just as what they submitted and what they recommended. It wasn't that there was any vote. It was just a point of, it says topics on top. It's topics that they wanted to discuss.
Right, and then the way I understand it, for example, on Cascos's X is there, I guess he's suggesting that the board members actually meet certain qualifications such as being a PE, a CPA, attorney, have a degree,
That's correct.
background check, et cetera.
That's correct.
Yeah, Vito, I would just caution, I mean, just
Yeah.
keep in mind, obviously, that whatever y'all recommend, we can always change.
Exactly.
But more so, keep in mind, I think that ultimately, the most important thing here is that whatever either comes from your recommendation or our ultimate approval, is that voters are going to be looking at it, they have to understand it, it has to make sense.
Exactly.
And ultimately, they're going to be the ones that are voting on it and approving it.
And that's what we want to simplify because we don't want 7 different amendments to 7 different areas of
Right.
the charter that half the time no one looks at it and either leaves it blank or just votes for it or against it.
Right, and I did watch the last meeting remotely, and there was a lot of discussion, obviously, but I think what was getting lost in there is that, I mean, it was almost like overthinking it, really even
Right.
going into the weeds on cause. And that's, I mean, just really try and use your time as efficient as possible and really come up with things.
Yeah.
that
And that's
voters
why
are
we
gonna
had
be able
Mr.
to look-
Hinojosa with us because we don't want, like I said, we don't want to start a ripple effect that later down the road, it affects the city of Brownsville through PUB.
Right, I understand that, but also,
Especially the funding and that PUB gets from the city, it's something that we're treading lightly to be sure that we have it right when we present everything that's going to appear before y'all for your vote.
no, and I
to be on
appreciate
the
all your
ballot.
work and I appreciate all the time y'all are putting into it. All right, I'm sorry to, go ahead, keep going. Any other comments?
Nerith, your microphone.
Thank you. So Gerardo Martinez, David Merrill, and Thomas Tijerina, they had some concerns about appointment of board members, but then there's no other X's. So what is it about the appointment of board members that they would like to see changed?
But what it is
Sorry.
after our meeting that, we may think of something, we email the attorney saying, hey, you know what? We need to bring this up at the next meeting. In that way, it can be discussed. As we discuss so much in our meetings and as you were there and thank you for being there at our last meeting, it's an open discussion because we want to get it right. We don't want to change, like I said, change something and it becomes a ripple effect later.
And Commissioner Glancy, if you could go to the second, go 2 more slides down. One, right there. So there has been movement. There is currently a recommendation to at least replace the majority of city commission to a supermajority. That's the recommendation right now. There has been some additional comments about whether to tweak that a little bit more, and so that has been tabled at this time, and that happened at the previous meeting. The same thing about whether it's 1 every 12 months. They're still working on that, but there has been some recommendation on that so far. Next slide, please. And that's really the recommendations that have been presented at this point.
And I would also say, Vito, on the removal, if you all do ultimately plan to recommend a supermajority, I don't think you really need to be concerned about limits on how many can be removed. I think that'll kind of police itself.
Okay.
But again, that's just my opinion.
And all input is welcome. Any
So
further questions?
just with that, there are next steps, unless the chairman wants to cover those or not.
Our next steps, on December 14th, we do have the CRC meeting to be held at the Brownsville Event Center at 5:30, which is open to the public. Continue review of the Article 6 of our charter, consider of our charter provisions recommended, and consider technical cleanup and approve cleanup provisions submitted by the city and our city manager.
And have you all submitted any recommendations on that already?
We actually have one cleanup within the charter as a technical point. It refers to a section that isn't there. So we've identified what section it refers to, and so that's been one of them.
I have not submitted amendments, but I may.
When do you plan to do that?
Next week.
Okay, yeah, because the sooner the better if they're going to be looking at it. Their meetings tend to run a little long. Okay, Vito, what else?
Anyone?
Is there anything else?
That's
No?
we're up to date.
What about the attendance? Have the members been attending?
Everyone, we've, being that we did change the meetings from Thursdays to Wednesday, we did have one person that has not attended, but because he had a prior commitment for that Wednesday, but everyone has been in attendance at every meeting.
Okay. And how many meetings do you have left? You know?
I think we're going all the way until February.
It's the end of February.
Yeah.
The reason I'm asking is if Wednesday poses a conflict for somebody, then we can consider changing that appointment for somebody that actually will. attend.
Mayor, I believe it was just for that one meeting, but
Yeah, it was just at one meeting.
Oh, okay.
ever
yeah.
since, everybody's been really
because-
good about attending.
Yeah, meetings were set for Thursdays. There was talk about, you know what, let's move it to Wednesdays, where we only had one member that was, I'm going out of town on business on this Wednesday and will not return till Thursday. So, and that's the only time he's missed. Other than that, everyone has been in attendance. Honorable Mayor, Commissioners, thank you.
Thanks.
Next item, we have presentations. Presentation on data analysis for Boots on the Ground campaign during COVID-19 pandemic.
Honorable Mayor, members of the commission, good evening. Oftentimes, when we're asked to deal with worldwide events such as a pandemic, it requires resources that we normally don't have available at a moment's notice. However, the purpose of this presentation tonight is to share with the community what came together, what occurred, and how it is that we got through the recent COVID-19 pandemic. What you will see tonight is organizations and volunteers coming together, data analysis, and weekly reports that came together by our presenters. Before I go further, I want to acknowledge UT Health as our academic public working group through Dr. Cece Bauer, Dr. Miriam Lee, Dr. Susan Fee Hodge, Dr. Joseph McCormick, Dr. Sala de la Cerda, Hiki Zhang, and Daniela Daly, some of whom are present with us tonight. And they will be telling the story of Brownsville. But before they get started, I need to share something, the collective impact that Brownsville had on the community beyond the city limits. The data that now shows that the work that was done here through our local students, through our local School of Public Health, and through our local employees of our own have had a very impact in the very research of what's done at a national level. And for that reason, I'm asking the citizens and the City Commission this evening some time, if you could, so that we could listen to a story about how Brownsville got through the pandemic. But not only did we get through it, we set a high bar. Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. I am now a doctor de la Cerda. I am a city of Brownsville native. It was this work that allowed me to get my PhD this summer. This and other aims, objectives. So it's my pleasure to present just the fruits of our labor from the collaboration between the City of Brownsville Public Health Department and UT Health Houston, the School of Public Health Brownsville Regional Campus. So we're not in any way related to UTRGV. So I was able to do my PhD here without having to leave home, and that was very exciting. So that, like as Dr. Rodriguez mentioned, that was our group, everybody that worked on the data that we were able to obtain from that data user agreement that you guys agreed on back in 2020, at the beginning of 2020. Do I control it through here? This? Okay. So what is Boots on the Ground? Boots on the Ground was a data-driven, community-led outreach intervention initiated by the City of Brownsville Public Health Department and aided by us, the data that we were able to provide to them. The goal of this intervention was to disseminate COVID-19 educational and test-seeking information to City of Brownsville residents, targeting census tracts with highest weekly case counts. Census tracts is a spatial unit that goes smaller than the county level, which is what other public health departments were using. They were using county level data. We had, because of the expertise that we had from Dr. Bauer, who is in Houston, she's a geospatial data analysis guru. So she was able to geocode all of the tests and the cases that we had here in Brownsville, and we were able to aggregate them at a much smaller unit to analyze. So as we see here, all of on the data-driven map, the outlines here, sorry, are all the Cameron County census tracts. The ones that are colored in yellow and orange are the City of Brownsville census tracts. The ones that are in orange are the ones that received the boots on the ground. The yellow ones were not targeted by this intervention. And that's because of the time interval that it lasted, which is, I'll get into it here. The community-led portion was that 8 City of Brownsville staff members went out to these selected census tracts to deliver packets of information that were both in English and in Spanish, which was very important at the time because 85% of our population usually speaks a language other than English, and it's usually Spanish. So that was important, getting the information to the people in their language so that they would understand. So in March 21st, we had our first reported case of COVID-19. In March 24th, the boots on the ground intervention began, but the efforts at this time were mostly blanket events at the public libraries and the event center. After that, in April 17th, after the data use agreement was in place between the two institutions, we were able to produce these census tracts or these maps that you have here. It was a weekly report that we would send to Michelle and Art. And it was representing the case counts in the census tracts. So Michelle used these maps to select the census tracts that they were going to go physically and give information out. From April 21st to June 8th, the boots on the ground was delivered this way. After June 8th, it did switch to news and radio and social media as a means of delivering the information. So this was one of my aims for my dissertation for my PhD. The purpose was here to provide a systematic method to understand and quantify, more importantly, quantify, to be able to say, yes, this had an effect, how well the intervention achieved its goals. That's a little more technical, the analysis that we applied. The outcome here was, the outcome we were looking at was the slope of COVID-19 daily test counts, 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after the census tract received this targeted intervention. So 17 of the 48 census tracts received this targeted intervention. I'm going to focus on the all tracks graph here. So the slope, meaning the trend of the daily test counts here, we have a break in the all tracks. There's 2 slopes here. One represents the trend of the daily test counts before boots on the ground, and the other line represents the trend after the boots on the ground, the daily test counts. So here our results showed that there was a positive significant change that occurred between the pre and the post daily test counts in the census tract that received boots on the ground. So those were our exciting.
So, sorry, this just only shows that people did go out and get tested, not necessarily their positivity, right?
Yeah, I didn't focus on the positivity, just how the information was reaching our targeted people or citizens.
Can
And
I
then,
ask you, without being too specific, what are those 2 tracks that you're specifically looking at?
so the 2 tracks, so there's data criteria that that must be met in order to interpret each census tract individually. And these 2 tracks were the only ones that met that data criteria. But in the all tracks, I was able to aggregate all 17 so that we could be able to interpret our results,
Can you
meeting the
reveal
data.
what part of town it is or?
So here, the orange tracks, oh, the two
Two.
tracks, I believe it was next, the little triangle next, or square next to the red, that was one of them. And the other one was next to the Cameron Park, which is the gray area within City of Brownsville. That's where they were located. And then just what the fruits of our labor here were also some significant publications. We had 3 significant publications and one, which is the results that I just presented to you. It's pending publication, but it's being pushed out just to put us on the map. And then just some other collaborations that we're doing because of this, as a result of the data user agreement, is the COVID-19 vaccine data dashboard and wastewater surveillance of infectious diseases, specifically COVID-19. So we are sending this, we're creating this dashboard and sending it to Michelle and Art again, just so that they have an idea of vaccination completion and where it's being completed and the frequency. And then the other one is wastewater surveillance. The aim for this is to use it in addition to testing, COVID-19 testing, since when at-home testing kind of skewed our frequency or measures for burden. So we want to use the wastewater surveillance to be able to tell additional burden information. Our lab in our campus here, we equipped it to be able to run the analysis that is needed to quantify the viral load in wastewater samples. Right now, we have these are the wastewater treatment facilities that we're analyzing. We're hoping to add Harlingen as well, so we can paint a bigger picture of just the burden of COVID-19 disease. We are also adding flu and monkeypox into the surveillance methods here. And that is it. If you guys have any questions. And that is it. If you guys have any questions.
I'll open it up to questions or comments from the commission.
I just want to thank you for collecting this data and especially your efforts with the boots on the ground during the COVID pandemic when it was at its peak. It was just absolute. I don't think anybody had the answers, but we were all trying to do our best. And I very vaguely remember, and I very strongly remember, not vaguely, I remember that a lot of comments were, thank you for coming by my house, and they came by and they left something. So thank you for your efforts and reaching out to our community and really doing that extra effort for our citizens.
Thank you for allowing us to do it.
I have a comment and a question. Actually, congratulations on your PhD. When did you earn your PhD?
July 6th this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
My comment is that 20 years ago, when the University of Texas system developed or passed the RAC, and each city was going to get a different piece. And like most physicians, we felt that the gold prize was the medical school. And so it was a very competitive process, very politically charged, as Joe and Sue will remember. And Brownsville was awarded the School of Public Health. And I remember back then how disappointed I was, thinking that, gee, that's not very exciting. And, you know, the medical school was the apple. And I couldn't have been more wrong, as evidenced by you earning your PhD and the beautiful work that you've done and the collaboration with the City Health Department and Dr. Rodriguez's work as well. So thank you. Thank you for proving me wrong on that. And then my question is, how frequently will we anticipate hearing about the wastewater results as that goes on?
So I believe it's every week, but we're not sending the results to the city. We're sending it to the wastewater facilities because of protocols and all that. But I don't know if there's potential to. They're going to the city as well. Okay.
A little bit more on that project. That's actually a novel project that's countywide. So if you look at the listing of the many wastewater facilities that are part of that innovative project, it's really to get ahead of the curve when cases are occurring in absence of testing, in absence of of other things going on. We have found that when we do this as a county-wide, it starts to show the patterns and where it is that we can go and provide assistance before it actually equates in a breakout. That's the whole premise of public health of John Snow in England, was that's how this was testing the wells for disease. And actually, you know, it's a couple hundred years later, we're back to testing wells and wastewater to see the origins of disease. But we are very thankful to be part of a network of testing. Tyler, El Paso, ourselves, and I may be forgetting another community, Houston, Laredo, are also part of a larger network of testing where we're trying to become communities that are ahead of the curve to try and reduce the cost of treatment. As you know, the ERs and the emergency rooms, not only treatment centers rather, are being overwhelmed. And by taking a proactive approach, we hope to reduce those costs on those who are uninsured and unable to bear the costs of these diseases.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
I do want to chime in also, and congratulations on your PhD. And Dr. Rodriguez, thank you for your work and leadership in this department in doing this. I do want to recognize Dr. McCormick and Dr. Fisherhawk, who were instrumental in the city's response in helping us strategize and guiding us through all of this. And if it wasn't for y'all too, we certainly would not have tolerated this as, quote, well as we did. But thank y'all, and I do want to recognize y'all for your work. Now, one thing that I do have a question on regarding this is you did an excellent job, obviously, in getting people to go out and test. Did you also use this for vaccinations?
So for vaccinations, we actually have been using one of our facilities, our local libraries. We have found that the libraries is a great mechanism that we're trying to get attendance, but because it requires a physical presence in getting the word out, in essence, with the social, as you saw, we switched to a social media model, and we've really fine-tuned that social media model now to where we're able to bring and convene people to the libraries so that we can use them for testing. Things have changed a lot since then. People are going to their doctors, and you can test at home now. But the vaccines effort themselves, we're continuing those through this month, and we'll be going in a different direction soon. But I think it tells the story of how we got through a very difficult time, which was the COVID-19 pandemic early in March. And one thing that we did, I don't think we mentioned, was we got a testing site in 3 days as a city, nowhere along the border. We were one of the first communities that was also able to test internationally, our sister communities, because this was something that in order for Brownsville to come ahead through COVID, we needed to take some strong partnerships down in South Texas. And we were able to, it wasn't about being first, it was about doing it right the first time.
I agree, and I think there's a bigger story to tell about Brownsville and its COVID response, not just getting people to test and showing how effective the boots on the ground was, but I think overall, the way we did respond to it and the way we put this testing program up so quick, all sorts of other things. But Dr. Rodriguez, what I was trying to ask though is, have you thought of using the boots on the ground initiative to also get people to get vaccinations?
We continue to use them. Sir, I just don't have the data.
Okay, because is there no way to quantify that on the back end because you don't know where they're testing?
Absolutely. You don't know where they're going and getting tested, but we know that it works because we also had another study that we're not talking about tonight. We did a replication of a Harvard study they did on us about trust and communications. And we have found that through the boots on the ground and building trust with the community, we were able to get the p-value that we needed for people to go get tested, get vaccinated. And we hope to actually be back and talk more about that community-wide program that's being looked at by communities like LA and other communities that have large Hispanic and Latinx communities. Thank you.
Thanks.
Can I just add, if this isn't separate, I have found the boots on the ground to be really helpful to then tailor the message that you're creating to your public. Because by going out and talking with people and listening to their stories, that really helped inform how I need to craft a message to get them to go get tested, to rely on these things, like, and how to dispel some of the myths that they were listening to. Because without hearing their stories, I wouldn't have known. what myths they were listening to.
Yes, Commissioner Galaski, if I can add, Communications Department has been like cousins to us because we've had to come back and craft the message depending on what we hear from our citizens. And sometimes we think we need to navigate in a certain direction and they come back and we course correct. So there's a lot of pivots in our journey, but I want to say that they're due to the fact because boots on the ground really connects back to the local citizen in a way that we're listening to them on a rather frequent basis and understanding. We found through Facebook that a lot of people use Facebook as their primary engine for communication in certain parts of town. So for that reason, we use those channels now to communicate prevention and testing sites and certain things like that. Sometimes it's social media, sometimes it's the regular radio and TV. And, you know, with Facebook Live and those other forms of communication that exist now, we're actually, in public health, we're actually one of the public health departments that is using those tools more aggressively than other areas. And we're expanding those tools into other divisions such as the animal shelter and in wellness. And we're applying what we started through COVID in other areas of our profession that originally we didn't intend to, but on the outcome side, we're seeing that it's leading to some really positive outcomes.
Shout out to the public health team because they really do go out and get in the community and establish relationships. There's like so many people who know Jesse, the beekeeper, and they have faith in him because they've had positive experiences and all the different members of the public health team.
There, and I want to publicly acknowledge our team from Michelle Jones to many other individuals that have different specialties and crafts within their professional careers. And each one comes to the table and gives us that feedback. And I think that's how we have been so successful and high caliber because we've got some truly great people in the city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would just add that the COVID test site that we put up in 3 days probably took every single department of the city to get that going. So thank you to all the city employees because they really made that happen.
Thank you.
Next item, we have consent agenda items.
Do we have any motions?
Move to approve.
We have a motion. Is there
Second.
a motion and a second? Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Next item, we have public hearings. Public hearing number 1, public hearing in action on first reading of ordinance number 2022-1673-A of the City of Brownsville, Texas, to update the master fee schedule of the City of Brownsville and dealing with related matters.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Miguel Cavazos, Budget Officer for the City of Brownsville, and I will be presenting the master fee proposed update with the help of the other departments. So the fees for services that are proposing an update is EMS, City Secretary, Public Library, Parks, Public Transit, Planning and Zoning, Engineering and Public Works, and Traffic. Just a quick summary, EMS ambulance fees have not been revised since 2010, and the current fees are substantially below usual, customary, and reasonable fees for the region. The fire department will elaborate more on the next slide. City Secretary is amending the ordinance to reflect the current state law to the TABC fee schedule. Public Library is proposing to increase room availability. Southmost Library meeting room will now be available. Parks has proposed to increase the rate of selected development process applications to recapture supplementary labor time costs invested. Public Transit has proposed to increase the rates due to raising demand and cost of maintenance. The Planning and Redevelopment Department has proposed to increase the rate of selected development process applications to recapture supplementary labor time costs invested. Engineering and Public Works are proposing an increase to the rates due to an increase in cost of materials and supplies. They're also proposing an increase for lost and damaged traffic control equipments to reflect the market value. Traffic is modifying the parking fees aligned with the new parking meters, as well as an increase the fees on rental equipment based on the replacement costs. I will now turn it over to Fire.
Good evening, Mayor, Commission. So our increase in revenue, like I said, hasn't been increased in quite some time. Our revenue for the BFD ambulance services are essentially funded by two different sources. One is the revenue from tax collected, and the other one is from our ambulance service charges. The difference between the revenue generated from ambulance fees and the cost of the service delivery is subsidized by the taxpayers at the rate we're charging right now. There's a graph on there, and I don't know if you can all see it, of our current rates and then our fair health standard rates for our region, significantly different. Maximizing our ambulance service revenue results in a decreased need for publicly funded tax subsidy on our citizens. So basically by being able to charge a higher rate, we'll be able to charge the insurance companies to fund the EMS service a little bit more rather than the community's tax dollars. We won't tell the insurance companies. Like I said, right now they're substantially lower below the usual customary reasonable fees for the region.
Chief, if you go back to the previous slide. So if someone calls an ambulance, they don't know if it's a terrible emergency or a medium-sized emergency, whatever, just the charge for calling the ambulance is $450?
The charge for the ambulance, and I do have my EMS billing supervisor who can go into detail on the charges.
Just in general,
Just for a 911 call, we need to check the level of service. Depending on the emergency situation, we can charge a basic, 300. This is actually an advance, 450.
Okay, and does Medicare reimbursement cover this charge?
Can you get closer to the mic, please?
It depends. It's supposed to be a medical necessity. They review the reason why they call, but usually they, like I said, I cannot say that it's a guarantee payment from Medicare because they actually have to review.
Okay.
And a little more detail into that question, our current payer mix is about 22% of our citizens are Medicare payments. 9.8% are Medicaid, 28% are insurance, and then 40% are billed to the patient with non-insurance.
Before you go off this slide, because I also like to look at these from the perspective of the public that is looking at these as public information, what does Fair Health represent? Because I don't see it explained on the slide.
Yes. So Fair Health is the average amount allowed for the region, basically. It is a studies done regularly, and actually my billing supervisor received an updated study from September 22 of this year discussing what the average EMS cost for the region is. So right now, under the Fair Health, we would be right at the standard and just a little bit below the latest update. But from about 2017 to 2020, EMS rates increased by almost over 22% from those times, and we haven't adjusted our rates.
And when you say region, is that just the valley or is it south of San Antonio?
South Texas.
So
Yeah,
south of
South
San
Texas.
Antonio?
Yes. So, like I said, the commercial insurers, well, actually, cities often set the fees, which is the UCR, the usual customary fees to prevent complaints regarding fees from the citizens. And I think that might answer some of the questions. They'll use ambulance service. However, it's also significantly reduces the amount which may be eligible from the insurance reimbursements. So that's where we're ended up having to use tax dollars to fund the EMS service more. And places increased financial burden on the city through the budget. Commercial insurers generally pay just a percentage of the UCR. Right now, since we're charging, say, $450 for an advanced care, we're usually reimbursed only $200. So being able to charge those insurance a little more, they'll be able to increase those fees as well. Like I said, 40% of our EMS calls are uninsured patients. We are considering that. We are looking at different options. Right now, we're working with our legal department. We have a proposed charity policy and a discount policy for cash payers. And it'll go basically off the standard of the poverty levels to be able to open up reimbursement at federal level.
So right now, Chief, how much of it is written off or not collected?
So at 40%, right now our collection rate's at about 37%, which is the average But for the uninsured, we're billing the 40% of those uninsured, and we're only collecting 7% out of that. So out of the 2.3 million in 2020 to 2021, we only collected 182,000, which is very low, but it also comes with our demographics of possible, the uninsured people in our region. So that is why we're also introducing the charity policy here in the near future, as well as discount policy for cash payers.
Well, in the future, if these rates do go up, then obviously the amount of money that's going to continue to be uncollected is going to increase significantly as well.
Yes, yes, and that's where most of our payments come from, the insurances. And this will give us the opportunity to rely more on those insurances for collection rather than subsidizing the service.
I get that, but do you know for a fact that the insurance company is actually going to pay more because they base their payments on reasonable costs and formulas as well?
Yes, and we did a recent study with CPSM and Iparametrics that provided, so let me get that real quick. I believe one service that was providing an example, their average patient charge is $1,651, and their average collected per transport is about $430. So it will go up slightly, but since we're really low, we're collecting half of that. Also, the other reason is our medical supplies have increased at least 20% and continue to drastically go up, almost every quarter. So revising our ambulance rates to be more aligned with the regional UCRs determined by the Fair Health study would result in substantial fee-for-service revenue enhancement, reducing the amount of taxpayer subsidy. So that's what I have on the EMS increases.
Chief, I have a question. So, say if someone doesn't pay, does the city go after them?
So
for-
right
for the
now, we
balance?
are in the procurement process. We're looking to outsource our collections for EMS. Right now, we don't have anything effective in place. But we are looking at outsourcing, working with procurement department on that. Also, with the charity policy, once we get that in place, they'll have to submit some documents to prove their poverty levels or some of their tax information. And from that, we'll be able to, through outsourcing, make a determination on which bills get written off.
I think that's really important because I think these type of bills can carry, obviously, for 7 years on their
Yes.
record, and it affects their credit and their ability to, advance in life. And I think that's a really important initiative.
Yeah. So once this all started, we are in the procurement process right now and identifying what companies and how we're gonna go about that. So that should be coming up pretty soon.
Thank you.
And I would agree with that. One time I needed an ambulance and I did not like the billing system that came with it. Every time I tried to pay the bill, I would call a number and I would get put on hold. And I think we should just take the money. Somebody should always be there when you're ready to pay. So I'll agree with
So
that.
recently, we did also, in the past year or two, we did introduce online payment methods as well. So,
Yeah, that was a while back. It might
Yeah.
have changed because I did complain back then too.
Well, I'm pretty sure if they don't have insurance, they probably don't have internet.
yeah.
I don't think that's going to help that.
And that's why we're looking for other options. There are, of course, other innovative ways that we can go about it that we'll look at in the future that other services are doing around Texas. One of them is membership fees, that basically if they pay the membership per household, some departments are charging $60 per household, then the out-of-pocket expenses are waived. If they have insurance, if they don't have insurance, there's a possibility that there become a significant discount on the rate. We're still looking into that to see if it's even beneficial to the community.
In the future, do you have any plans to look at this every couple of years, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I think we'll keep better track of it and just keep on top of the fair health standards, because we are way below market right now.
Well, then now, if we raise our rates, that might then increase the average rate for the region again.
Yes.
Right. All right, thank you.
And like I said, it's increased, by $100 in the past 5 years or so, $200. So we'll be watching that, especially post-COVID here.
Thanks.
Public hearing.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Yoli with the City Secretary's Office. The fees are only to reflect what the TABC in 2019, the Texas legislature has passed. The consolidation of 75 licenses down to 37 licenses as of September 1st, 2021. The only change, there's no fees, there's no changes on the fees. It's only, we're collecting the fees every 2 years instead of annually. That is the only change word, just to
Okay.
reflect what the state approved.
Josephine Balboa. I'm the branch manager for the Brownsville Public Library System. And what we have updated are the cost of range in the lost and damaged material to include the new materials that we've added, such as iPads, MiFis, and scientific calculators. So on the slide that was sent to you all that had the range, I just wanted to clarify on something because it had from 0 to 200, and then there was a decimal and a comma on the other column. It actually ranges from 0 to 2,000, just because of the electronic material that changes in range. The other items that we have changed, that we've made an update, is that we've had an increase in demand on asking for our meeting room rentals. So we have added our classrooms at our southmost branch and our multipurpose rooms at both of our branches to go ahead and assist our patrons with that. And then we have also added our new department of our makerspace department, which is an area where our patrons can utilize their creativity skills to use our 3D prints, our Cricuts, heat press materials. And so that would include the filament that we use for that and the vinyl and tote bags. Any questions?
Any questions? All right, thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Commission. So primarily, our fee schedule fell into 5 buckets. One was to memorialize rates that we had not had in the master fee schedule. Also to consolidate rates and make them more uniform rather than competing across the different divisions. We had some increases due to the cost of goods and services that we were experiencing, a lot around that 12% range, but anywhere up to 30%. Of course, and standardize some fees. We had some, when we did some analysis, we had certain adult leagues that were paying less than the child rate. And so we wanted to make that more fair and equitable. So some of those fees reflect that. And then we did have requests over time to add different fees, such as if we wanted to have a wedding in the park, what fee would that be? And adding a permit, disc golf use, things like that, photography shoots. The last rate change was just targeted to the Brownsville Event Center. That was last July in 2021, which the City Commission approved. And prior to that, the last fees that we had was in 2016, and that was primarily through the athletics division. And we did a local market comparison to the Valley cities and Parks and Rec departments and we're still under a lot of that. So just for example, a 4-hour gym rental, for us, we would charge 10 hours or $200 for 10 hours, and McAllen would charge $400 for a 400 rental. So we were severely under what our local competitors were charging. We also recently did a comprehensive analysis with the municipal golf courses and also privately, but we adjusted our proposed rates for the local golf ones. And so just for a few examples, so summer recreation program, there's a slight typo. It was meant to be, we're proposing $40. We'll amend that in the second reading if approved, instead of the 35 rate. That was a 13% increase just for the cost of goods. Our learn to swim went from 30 to 35. And lifeguard certification, $120 to $125. There's a long list, so I'm only highlighting a few of these rates. Athletic fields, we have a non-resident rate going from $40 per hour to $45. And then some new rate examples are things just like at Sports Park, we have windscreen panels. So we would get solicited, hey, I want to advertise windscreens on yours, but we don't have a fee for that. So now we'll be able to do that. Same thing with pole banners, some adult player rates for athletics. And then also, instead of a whole park rental, which originally was $1,500, now is going up to $2,500. and that was through some agreements that we've had in place for a while, is to do an area reservation. So either by square foot or by a designated area. So a minimum $150 for an area or 5 cents per square foot, depending which is greater. And then the meeting space for various rooms, that can be up to like $30 for an hour rental of the kitchen or a meeting space at the rec center. And that's it. Any questions?
Dameron, I just have one. And I might visit with you on some of the others, but the post-event cleaning rate. I had one question on that because I saw it's $300 an hour. How
Which one
many,
again? Say it again?
the post-event cleaning rate? If the
Yes.
park is left dirty and it needs to be cleaned up? I see it's at $300 an hour.
Yes.
How many employees would be working that at that rate? And it doesn't have to be answered today. That's just something
Okay.
I'll want to know for the next one.
Let me check, and usually it would be, sometimes it was a standard across the room from like event center, so it'd probably be 2 to 3 as my initial guess, but we can follow up with an exact number. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Commissioners. We have some new fees for our parking garage. Due to high demand and rise of maintenance, we're proposing to increase our monthly fee per spot from 40 to 55, our daily fee from 10 to 12, replacement cards from 6 to 25, and lost tickets from 15 to 25. And so after surveying the other public agency in the region that has its own parking garage, which is like Cabot Metro, they charge $1 per hour, the same as us. That fee would not change, $1 per hour. But they increase 50 cents for every hour, up to $5. Their fee is $5 per day, but they do not have a monthly fee. And so whoever is there will pay the $5 per day for 30 days. And so their monthly fee is $150.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the commission. The planning department's fees reflect a strategy of identifying those services that did not reflect the cost of providing the service and adjusting the fees accordingly, and then eliminating fees where we found that we may have been spending more administrative costs than it's worth collecting the actual fees. So we're recommending that those fees be eliminated. We'll still provide the service, still accept a permit application, but we just will not charge for that service. It'll be incorporated into our base operating budget.
Thank you.
Take any questions.
Any questions? All right. Thanks, Rick.
Good evening, Honorable Commissioners. The traffic rates are not made to create a profit or revenue for the city. They are for the safety and the benefit of the citizenry. Some rates generate a loss in our budget. Therefore, an increase is sought to at least be at market price as shown on the table. So currently, right now, as you can see, we're charging $12 for post signs, and the market price is 38, 18 for the aluminum stop sign blanks, and the market price is 37.43. Base street name is currently, we're charging $10, and the market price is $17.97. Lost or damaged barricades, we don't charge for that, and at the market price, it costs us $76.75. The fees are due to an increase in the cost of materials, equipment, supplies, and an updated cost for lost, damaged traffic control equipment has been included to reflect the current market price. New rates provided are for requested usage. There are no fees established for temporary traffic control equipment. Questions?
Carlos, do they charge for those signs that say no parking in front of houses where they only have street parking?
We don't install those anymore.
Okay.
We weren't charging for those, no.
Okay, but they're not, no one can get them anymore?
No,
Okay.
yes. Thank you.
All right, good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Commissioners. It seems that I got the funnest part of the presentation. I'm gonna go over really quick some presentations that we put together this evening. This is the scope of the presentation, so we're gonna cover what are we changing, and this is for the parking stations The new parking stations, an overview, the parking stations rate and the comparison, some of the benefits, and of course, I have time for your questions. Next slide, please.
Bias, we can barely hear you, man. Can you get
Oh.
closer? I
All right, what about now?
think it's a little better. Thank you.
Okay, so why are we changing the parking meters? Well, as you know, right now, and here we have our engineering public works staff. They're having a lot of issues right now because the parks being discontinued. They don't have more parks and they can no longer be in service. Currently, they're faulty equipment. If you go around downtown, you can see there's some equipment that they don't have, they're not functioning anymore. They're unattractive, they're getting older, and we have right now for every single spot, we have one that covers two, so kind of some sort of clutter in the sidewalk. Unfortunately, they're just limited for coins. They don't have any other capacity at this point, and it's part of the revitalization efforts on downtown. Next slide, please. And here we have a quick visual of the new parking stations. As you might know, we already have a pilot going on, and we want to make sure that everything that possibly can wrong actually goes wrong. So it is working. We've seen identifying things that we can improve. So the new parking stations, we're going to be offering ways to pay on credit cards. So now we have that option now. You can be able to pay through Apple Pay or Google Pay. And now you can be able to also use your bills and coins as well, right? So we're keeping that hybrid approach. It will be able to use a smartphone capability. It's through an app, so every user that can download the app will be receiving real notifications. So it is convenient for the users because whenever you are, enjoying a pizza or going to a restaurant or even doing business cities, you will get a notification in your phone that your spot is about to expire, and it's really convenient. Right now, also, we're working with a vendor, hopefully, because we don't want to push it, but giving the access to the public that it can also do through text. But that's something that the city right now is working with the vendor so that you don't have to always download the app. You can use a text message in way to pay. Also, it is really user friendly. We want to have English and Spanish versions of it so people can actually navigate the screen. And you're going to be able to pay by plate. So in other words, you're going to input the license plate, and yes, it takes or neighborhood city Mexican plate. You can be able to enter that and through the plate, and one station will be conveniently located on each block, and it will help to declare the sidewalks because we will have more walking space. Next slide, please. So the parking stations rate. A little bit of background. Back in 2014, the city moved the rate from 20 cents to 25 cents for 30 minutes. What we're proposing this evening is to move for 50 cents for 30 minutes or at $1 for an hour. The team and I, we created some analysis and making sure that the new proposed rate, it actually falls in the way that as a public entity, we're not making at least money or revenue additional, but that we also invest in the right amount for the services that we're proposing. We also did some research and comparison with other cities that not only have a downtown and the parking meter services, but also using the same provider. McAllen is already at $1, so the city of Brownsville, we don't increase it. We're actually on the lowest end. Galveston, Forward, as you can see, they're pretty high compared to the city of Brownsville. Next slide. So these are the benefits, right? And right now we have here some business owners, and this is the things that we did, through the outreach campaigns, and we went out, talking to them, and basically with anticipated revenue, we're going to be covering the cost of additional downtown services. One of them is to increase or enhance police presence in downtown. Also, we're going to be establishing a dedicated downtown maintenance crew to improve operations and beautification efforts. It would also be able to lower the parking station level costs and maintenance. It will improve parking system and accessibility because now you can use it through your app and be able to integrate it with your phone. It, of course, will cover the annual cost for the software, and we'll be able to provide a dedicated funding source so we can improve the Christmas event experiences and any other small events in downtown. The next slide. So before questions, it's really important for you guys to know that if approved tonight, we'll start working with our legal team so we can start amending the actual ordinance. We're going to make sure that the master fee schedule aligns with the ordinance and be able to reflect it on the language and also how we install the parking stations in downtown because it is in the right, it is in the ordinance. So we're gonna make sure that we do that if it's approved tonight, and then we're gonna bring it back to you guys so we can have the official ordinance with the master fee schedule. But I will be happy to entertain any questions at this point.
Go first. Just a comment, and I fully support the rate increases. I think it's absolutely necessary, and I like where those revenues are gonna go. What concerns me, if we could go back to the slide that says, why are we changing the parking meters? Back one more. Right there. This concerns me, and I'm thinking about this as from the perspective of a citizen. Because we've heard this for years on why aren't we digital yet? Why aren't we doing mobile? Why aren't we doing other things? And I'm glad we're going there. But to see that the reason we're doing that is because equipment's obsolete, we can't find parts, we can't get it done right. That tells me that we're not doing this because the people have been asking for it. We're doing it because, you know what, we finally beat the horse to death. We've got to change now whether we like it or not. That's the wrong message to send. And I think we can put a better foot forward. And I know we've had the discussions, so I know that's not all that went into this decision, but I think this is a poor way to represent it as far as the reason why. But everything else, I fully support you guys. I think the work you guys have done is tremendous. We're headed in the right direction, and you'll have my full support on the fees tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner. Noted.
I agree as well with the increase in fee, and I think we did wait as long as we possibly could before doing that. I will say that when I travel and I started seeing those electronic ones that we're going to get,
Yeah.
at first it was intimidating. You know, I had my quarter in my hand and I was like, all
Right.
I want to do is put this quarter in the meter. And now I got to do the app and I got to do
Right.
this. And it was, but then when I actually took that off and did it, it was very simple and very easy. I would encourage you to do some quick videos showing people how they work, because if I got annoyed because I couldn't put my quarter in the machine anymore, other people may as well. So.
Yes,
I
yes.
do
Thank you
hope
for
we do
that. Actually, we were just waiting for this moment. Marketing department is already working with us. We have a press release ready and some videos to use that specifically. Yes. Yeah, so we're gonna having that. So thank you for reinforcing that.
Good.
And I would add, Commissioner, this does, because it allows for the transition of people who still want to put that quarter in or that dollar. So we felt it was important because we have our neighbors in Matamoros that travel every day, or some people just still use cash and feel comfortable with that. So the ability to be able to, it's rare that, the vendor asked us twice, is that something, a feature you want? And I said, for now it is. Maybe in the future, that's something we would want to discontinue. But I think for now, as part of the transition, that's the part of change managing our community and also just being very flexible. You can be very modern. If you really want to go use Apple Pay, you can, or your app or what have you. But if you want to go old school and still put that quarter in there or get rid of that quarter or dollar, you can as well. So.
I would also remember, I'm also remembering as you're talking, many years ago, I went to a TML conference and they had competitions for creative little instructional videos that different cities had done. And the one that won was, I don't remember the city, but they were trying to cut down on jaywalking. And they did a spoof on jaywalking and the video was very instructional, it was hilarious, and they won. So maybe you can do something creative with those videos that actually engage people to watch them.
Yes, of course. Monica Manny, you're being challenged.
I do have a couple questions. On the hours that the parking meters are currently, I guess, enforced, it goes up to 5 PM. Are you planning on enforcing a later time?
We've been kind of looking at that, and yes, that will be the next step because that's on the ordinance. So if your feedback is that we're looking into it, we can add it because that's a written language that we need to add it in the ordinance, and we can go all the way to maybe 7 PM. And we have inputted some data so we can give you some numbers if we increase it, because that would also bring additional costing for parking enforcement because it's from 5 to 7. Right now, they're scheduled from 8 to 5. But definitely, if that's something that Commission wants to look at, we're ready to look at that because we've been kind of thinking about it. And then we're going to be able to add it in the ordinance.
Okay. Not recommending, I was just asking. I wasn't sure if you were going to do it.
Yes, we are looking at extending it to 7 PM.
Okay. And then the dollar an hour, I can understand it making sense, but my concern has always been, because I know that typically the reason for this is there's complaints from business owners and others that parking spots are taken, therefore patrons aren't able to park and they go somewhere else. So what we also find though is that the people that actually park in front of the businesses are the employees or the business owners, right? So is there an option for employees or business owners, and I've always advocated for this, is there an option for the employees or the business owners to have a lower cost alternative at a city-owned parking lot or a permit or anything else? We know that there's permits at the parking garage, but there's always been a question as far as how many are actually available and who can get them. But I know that we have a lot of other city-owned parking lots, and I've always advocated that owners and employees have the option or should have the option to park at those lots at a reduced rate. Is that something, and you and I have had a discussion on this.
Yes.
So have you come up with a solution on that?
Yes, so it is a solution, so yes, we can. The reason it's not here right now is because actually we want to create a program not only for business owners, employees, but also residents. So we want to be able to, right now, for example, Joel is next to me because we're surveying the garage. So we can see how many spaces we have available at that point. We're surveying other city lots, so we can find alternatives. But not only that, we already talked to the vendor and they have the module for that program separately out of the parking stations.
Okay.
So we're gonna have that. It's just we're gonna have a really robust program. So people, for example, residents, they're gonna be able to show it through the lease. So we're researching other cities. So we can have that kind of different options, not only for business owners and employees, but also residents.
Okay, so you will have that option.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, really quick, just a quick comment. As per FTA, we're required to be fair market value. And so whatever rate we have to the public has to be to any entity.
Are you talking about the parking garage?
Parking garage that was constructed by FTA, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think this is the public hearing.
Well, I do have a question.
Yes.
What are you going to do with curbsides, with deliveries, with all these spaces that you have right now assigned? What's going to happen with those? And how is it going to be fixed, I guess, for it to work?
If I'm not mistaken, we're also looking at, as you know, we have in the corners like the loading spaces. We're looking at exploring that and maybe kind of make it as a just open space for 15, 20 minutes or so. And we're also looking at those spaces that you mentioned it right now, either kind of have one assigned every specific corner strategically for businesses and bring those options to you.
So our
Would it
loading
be
and the
more like
loading-
where
a
you,
share.
I mean, it'll be shared, I guess,
Exactly.
because you don't deliver all day, right?
Right.
Usually deliveries are usually earlier
Correct.
in the morning. or-
Correct. But we're doing that through data, so we're gonna make sure that when we bring that to use, because we already kind
Okay,
of checked.
and now
that.
for the enforcement that, I mean, you touched a little bit on the enforcement because of the hours. You didn't talk about the enforcement. But with the enforcement, how is it enforced? Is it a license plate reader or?
So, it is a twofold kind of answer. So right now, the way it is, and we're trying to work with our vendor, making sure that hopefully this approved again, we're gonna give the green light to kind of move forward. The parking enforcement meter guys would have a handheld, which right now they currently have. What we're trying to do, instead of having a manual process, we want to integrate the municipal court system through their handheld. They're also gonna have a dashboard available for them. So instead of just walking around and kind of chasing, they can be more targeted, approach. And they can be able by maps and zones that we already zoned around. So right now, that's kind of like the way we're planning it. Hopefully, the ideal stage is of having one device, and once they go through license plates, they input it, because on the dashboard, they're already showing that it expire. It validates on the system, and then they can run the citation, and it goes directly to municipal court.
Okay, because I mean, if not, it's gonna be even slower, right? If you have to go into each one and manually punch it in. Because I mean, after we saw what the firefighters are going through at 7%, I don't even want to know how we're doing with our enforcement of parking.
Right, so the dashboard that this vendor is providing, which we have in training, I think the training last week or week before, they're gonna be able to see what the license plates are expired and where they're located. So they can go directly to that street instead of kind of like you said, looking one-on-one.
All right, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Any other questions?
I just had a quick question. I'm not sure if it's been covered, but does it provide usage data, like I want to see downtown, how many cars are being parked per street at these times. Because I think as we grow downtown, I think it's obviously, we're going to need more solutions, more parking garages, things like that. And being able to see the data and being able to plan proactively, hey, this is where we need to go. I think that data would be very helpful.
Yes, and that was one of the requirements that the team asked, is to be able to have a quick, easy reporting access. So not only be able to see how many people are actually paying, what are the trendings, if they're, you know, what times and how much hours they're paying, what are the main streets, as maybe we know, but through data we'll validate that. So yes, so we have that. Like I said, hopefully, once we go live and we have these 65 kiosks around, you know, vendor will keep up with us and making sure that we have the right reports to you guys.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak on this item?
Thank you.
Yes, I had some questions. Right now, when you go downtown, you know that if there's a parking meter there, that is a parking space, first of all. Secondly, you know that it's paid parking. How will we know now that it's a spot that has to be paid for? And does it matter which little machine you go to pay for it? And are you still going to get a ticket on the windshield if you go over the time or whatever?
Well, while they walk up to answer a couple of those things, I know that it's one parking station per block. So all the parking spaces on that block are enforced by that parking station. But as far as the ticket on the windshield, I don't know the answer to that one.
Yeah, so we're gonna be having one each side, so that's 2 blocks, and then on the citation, as of now, is gonna be leave at the windshield view, if you will, but also we'll be able to have in your notifications, but that will print out the ticket and put in your windshield.
Just like it is now?
Yes, as it is now, yeah.
Okay, and so how will people know that that is a spot that has to be paid for?
I will have signs, and I believe Lucio, Engineering Public Works is be working on putting some signs where like this is the spot that you can pay. And since we have one station, you can pay in that station, and you can park anywhere.
No, I mean, how do you know when you park your car that this is a spot that has to be paid for? It's not a free spot?
They have some signs. Yes.
At every parking space?
Correct.
No, we will have a sign on the street, and also we'll have the parking station. So if you go to Austin or McAllen, I mean, there is probably a sign, like a physical sign that you can see, not on every spot, because then we would go back to the cluttering of the sidewalk. However, we will use a couple of things, a map that shows the area, the boundary of downtown, and then we can also provide maybe a few signs that that show that this block is subject to parking station. So that's what we'll provide.
I do think there's also places where they paint the side. I don't know, that might be something you want to look into.
We'll look at different options.
I mean, at least at the beginning, when people get used to it, it might help.
Just please tell us your name, sir.
My name is Joe Martinez. I currently have a building on East Adams, and we're planning on opening up a bar pretty soon. It's going to be an eatery and also a bar. My question was, I was kind of wondering if we could I noticed some of the businesses have eateries where they actually have a parking space reserved for people that want to go like a drive-through sort of thing, like Dodici Pizza. Well, can we apply for something like that? Or is that going to cover as far as the meter that you're asking for? I mean, would it be open for us? Like for me to open up a space for me, for my business?
Not just for your business. The way the way we're approaching is that because there's probably multiple businesses that want a space in front of it. If we provided one to every business, then we wouldn't have public parking, right, on the street. So, or visitor parking. So what the approach that we're taking is that we're looking at all the spaces that right now have, we used during COVID. So a lot of the spaces that you see that have the bag they were created because of COVID. During COVID, as you know, many residents and many of our businesses were taking food home because we didn't allow, at a certain point when COVID was really bad, for people to dine in. So to support our businesses, we created those specific corners where people can take out or take away, right? Now, what we're doing is we're looking at the existing loading and unloading signs that are underutilized. A lot of signs, and some of them are very close to intersections or mid-block, they're very much underutilized. And so what we're doing is taking an inventory of those existing signs that are sometimes at corners or mid-blocks to see if those can be converted to 10-minute or 15-minute pickups. So that way it's something that all businesses along that block can use versus one specific business. So right now, we're inventorying all those signs and then converting them. I don't know if you've been to certain cities, Dallas or certain cities have that 10-minute pickup, but it doesn't say just 10 minutes for XY business. It's 10 minutes for a block of businesses. And so that's how we're going to be approaching that, sir. And
Yeah,
we'll give
because I
more
noticed there was
information.
a, yeah, there's a
Mayor-
bar that
Mayor,
currently has a deck on a parking space. Like you know, I'm more or less, I was
Mayor-
mentioning that.
Mayor,
Will they
Commissioners,
be able to keep
Council?
it?
yes, I've given some flexibility for this discussion, but this is getting off a topic of the fees. I believe that there's going to be another item at a future meeting as it relates to the actual ordinance, parking ordinance. And I think that discussion can be brought up at that point.
Yeah, and Mr. Martinez, I would also suggest maybe a follow-up with our administration to get better answers to your questions as well.
Let us know. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else?
Motion to close public hearing?
Okay, we have a motion to close. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Motion to pass?
We have a motion to pass. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Number two, public hearing in action on first reading on ordinance number 235-2022-005- TABC to consider an exemption to land spacing requirements established by the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission to allow the sales of alcoholic beverages for on-premises consumption within a bar located 159 inches from a church for an approximate 800 square feet out of a 6,160 square foot tract in lots 8 and 9, Block 93, Brownsville Original Town Site, located at 716 East 12th Street.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Commissioners. I will be presenting this item on behalf of Mr. Alan Garces. So this request is to consider, as we mentioned, an exemption to land spacing requirements. As you may know, TABC does establish certain distances for business where there will be a transaction for alcohol consumption or sale. In this situation, this proposed bar is 159 feet away from a church. This property is fronting East 12th Street, and the current zoning is downtown core. The way it's measured for this type of business, it's from door to door. So for this particular situation for bars, it will be 300 feet that's required from door to door in order to comply with TABC regulations. Now, the Texas Beverage Code does provide the option of by ordinance or resolution, having the city council override that particular distance requirement. And so as mentioned, the current distance is 159 feet from door to door to Immaculate Conception Cathedral. This was the 200-foot buffer map. There were 16 mail lots and 0 written opposition. And this is the street view of the building. It's specifically the one with the address of 716. And so the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval for this exemption. Any questions?
Was the church okay with it?
They received the mail out. We did not receive any opposition.
You know the square footage of this proposed bar?
I believe it's 800 square feet.
Isn't there a bar at the corner, at the far end?
It's
of
a
the
restaurant.
building? Huh?
It's a restaurant on, closer to the church, it's a restaurant.
Yeah, but the other corner, like across the street from your restaurant, isn't it a bar?
Not on the corner, but inside, yeah.
Right. There's one right at the corner. They did comply with the 300 feet. Actually, theirs, when we compared, they're at 301.59 feet.
And it has to be 300 feet? Is that the?
It has to be 300 feet measured from door to door.
Okay, any other questions or comments? This is a public hearing. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak on this item? Okay, you have a motion to close?
Move to close.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Now, do we have a motion
I
on the
move to
item?
approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Public hearing number 3, public hearing in action on first reading on ordinance number 235-2022-025 to rezone from residential single-family and regional center to residential transition for 11.58 acres comprised of 2.98 acres out of a 3.73 acre tract out of a 5.6 acre tract of the abandoned sugar mill spur of the Missouri Pacific Railroad out of Share 22 Espiritu Santo Grant and 8.6 acres out of Block 1 Media Luna subdivision located near Lorinary Drive.
So just a brief history on this case or on this item. It was presented back in October 18th to be specific. It was a request to go from a dually zoned property, residential, single family and regional center. They're wanting to rezone to residential transition to allow multifamily development. Now, at that time, there were concerns about traffic impacts on Lauren Alley. The response from the applicant was to do a traffic report, a traffic study. What came back to staff and forwarded to our engineering department, there weren't significant amount of trips generated in order to trigger additional action. So we did include the traffic report in your packets. And just to go over the case again, this is a 200-foot buffer map. There were 79 mailouts and no opposition. This is a zoning map. What predominates is regional center. There's some residential suburban to the south and residential single family to the north. And this is where the street view where Lauren Alley ends at the cul-de-sac. This is the aerial view. And P&Z did recommend the approval to rezone from single family R1 and regional center to residential transition. Any questions?
Do we have any questions or comments from the commission?
So am I understanding this right, that what it was before and what it is now is actually going to create more residents in that area that are residential because it's multifamily now?
Can you repeat the question?
You said there was a change on what they were doing before because of the concerns about traffic.
Oh, no. The request remains the same.
Okay, so it's still about
Yes.
apartments, multi-dwelling units in a medical district.
Yeah, I think it's 200 apartments or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is the one that came before and we were concerned about everybody exiting onto the frontage road.
Yes, Commissioner, that's correct. And we do have the applicant here in case you want to hear more from that.
Do we have any other questions?
I have a question. I don't know what the cutoff is, but I know above a certain number of units, there's a requirement for an egress and or 2 points of access for the development. Is that, can you accommodate that on that site?
Well, not, that particular requirement doesn't come from zoning. I wouldn't be able to respond on that. But right now, given the configuration of the property, it only has access to Laurinell.
I understand. I think it's just, it's a site big enough to have an entrance and an exit on that street.
Oh, yes, well, it does have the complete frontage on Lauren Alley, so they would be able to.
Good evening, Commissioner. If he has fire access all around with a loop, you don't need the 2 accesses. So this case is how it's proposed to probably.
Okay, thank you.
So the fire department and everybody, they're okay with it? Okay.
Any other questions?
¿Es tu proyecto, Chacon? A ver, can you describe it?
Good evening, Rafael Chacon, local developer. Well, this is a project that it's a little north of 200 units. We did do a traffic study, what is it called? TD, trip generation, no? And we complied with the city minimum standards on that study. Another note is that we're downgrading on a certain piece of this land. It's, what is the zoning there? Regional center, so we're able to put something that potentially could have more parking. Now we're downgraded to residential, and I understand that we have less of an impact if traffic was a concern. There's another area that's residential, but there we're in a very small area of this, that we're very small portion that we're upgrading it, but the other one we're downgrading the zoning of it. Do you have any other questions?
It's for anyone, or since you live, since it's so close to medical facilities, will it be,
That's our target market. Yeah, it's for anyone, right? But that's our target market. They're in the medical field to be close by.
My only concern was the tremendous amount of traffic that flows through that one street. But if the fire department is okay with it and they feel like they can still get ambulances in and out with that, I think it's fine.
I think what Omar was communicating is that, one, we have the traffic engineering report that determined that the trip generation is sufficient, the street network can handle the traffic. As far as the fire department, it'll be a code requirement that they have to provide a perimeter road to avoid the two access points that the Commissioner was discussing earlier.
Okay. Well, we appreciate that you went and got that information for us.
Another thing is the people that are working there, usually they come in the morning and people that are leaving, they're leaving. So it's really not everybody coming in at the same time. So usually in hours of work hours, there's traffic flowing both ways, people leaving and people coming in. Thank you.
Thanks. We have a motion to close public hearing.
motion to close?
We have a motion to close. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those
Motion to
opposed?
approve?
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Public hearing number 4, public hearing in action on first reading on ordinance number 235-2022-028 to rezone from residential single family to commercial corridor for 3.744 acres out of an 18.94 acre tract out of a 568.84 acre tract, Share 14, Espiritu Santo, located at the intersection of Summerhill Boulevard and FM 1732.
This request is to establish a commercial plaza. Currently, this site is zoned residential single family. The required zoning would be commercial corridor. It is part of a single family subdivision. It's actually the third phase to this development. It is fronting FM 1732. This is a 200-foot buffer map. There were 8 mailouts and 0 written opposition. And as you can see, the primary zoning is R1. All around is the extraterritorial jurisdiction for around this property. And this is a street view. Aerial view. And just to point out, all around the existing Summerhill subdivision, it's already developed. And so P&Z did recommend approval to rezone from residential single family to commercial corridor.
Okay. Do we have any questions from the commission? All right, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody here on this item? We have a motion to close?
Motion to
close.
close?
We have a motion to close. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Now, do we have a motion on the item?
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Public hearing number 5, public hearing in action on first reading on ordinance number 235-2022-029 to rezone from commercial corridor to regional center for lot number 1, Boca Chica Acre subdivision located at 4814 Boca Chica Boulevard.
This request is to establish a pawn shop on the property. The current zoning is commercial corridor. The required zoning is regional center, and it is fronting Boca Chica Boulevard. This is a 200-foot buffer map. There were 16 mailouts and 0 written opposition. So the predominant zoning in the area is commercial corridor and residential single family. This is a street view. It is an existing building, however, it is next to a single family home. This is the aerial view. And so the request isn't consistent with the comprehensive plan and future land use plan. The P and Z did, however, approve the rezone from commercial corridor to regional center.
What I couldn't tell by this was, is it going to be a new construction or is it just going to be a rehab of the existing building? Do you
No,
know?
they will be using the existing building. They're going to repurpose it.
Okay.
Did the house contest it? No?
No, opposition.
All right, any other questions or comments? This is a public hearing. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak on this item? We have a motion to close?
So moved.
We have a motion to close. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, do we have a motion on the item?
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Public hearing number 6, public hearing in action on first reading on ordinance number 235-2022-030 to rezone from agricultural to residential transition for a 10.00 acre tract of land out of a 20.00 acre tract, all out of lot number 9, block 104, El Jardín re-subdivision, share 29, Espiritu Santo, Grant, located on South Dakota Avenue.
This request is for a multifamily development. Currently, it is zoned agriculture. The required zoning is residential transition, and the property is fronting South Dakota Road directly across Lopez High School and to the north, Idea Public School. This is a 200-foot buffer map. There were 11 mailouts and 0 written opposition. The predominant zoning in the area is agriculture. However, there's a variety, or the majority use on the ground is residence. This is a street view. And the aerial view. And P&Z did recommend approval to rezone from agricultural to residential transition.
Okay, do you have any questions or comments?
So they already got annexed into the city, right?
Yes, it's part of the city limits.
This is a public hearing. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak on this item? Do you have a motion to close?
Move to close.
We have a motion to close. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Do we have a motion on the item?
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Public hearing number 7, public hearing in action on first reading on ordinance number 235-2022-031-PD to establish a planned development district for a 4.98 acre tract of land out of Lot 1, Blocks 15, Rio Bravo subdivision, Section 1, located at 4541 U.S. Military Highway.
So this request is to create a planned development district to establish development-specific regulations. This particular property is already site to the Riverbend Country Club. So they are requiring development-specific setbacks and lot sizes and reduced private right-of-way width as approved by corresponding departments such as fire. And so the overall intention is to establish a variety of uses on the property. Among them, single-family, residential development, townhomes, multifamily, and resort amenities for the existing development. And the property is fronting U.S. Military Highway. So these 4 acres will be phase 1 of this project. This is a 200-foot buffer map. There were 38 mailouts and 0 written opposition. The zoning that predominates is residential single family, and there's agriculture to the north. This is a street view. The aerial view. And P&Z did recommend approval to the request to establish the planned development district.
Okay, Do you have any questions or comments from the commission? Do we have anybody who wishes to speak on this item? All right, do I have a motion to close?
Motion to close.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those
Move.
opposed?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Public hearing number 8, public hearing in action on first reading on ordinance number 2022-235.102 to amend the Unified Development Code, Section 5.3, signs and dealing with related matters as shown in Exhibit A.
So the purpose of this amendment, and the origins of it is, staff has continually received, applications or requests to install pylon signs, monument signs, and the provisions of the code that, for the UDC that were, originally established, perhaps weren't as tailored to our municipality as they should have. And so, we are proposing the amendment of 3 sections, specifically the monument signs, multi-tenant monument signs, and polar pylon signs. And so this will create additional flexibility while still maintaining the balance of preventing clutter, but not compromising the advertising capability for a business. And so for monument signs, we did increase the permissible height from 8 feet to 12 feet. And so for all of these types of signs and established by the code, there is an administrative approval of up to a 20% increase within permissible constraints. For the multi-tenant monument sign, basically same as a monument sign. The only difference is that there's, for, let's say, a commercial plaza where there's multiple tenants, we have expanded the permitted use districts in which they are allowed. Originally, the districts that are not highlighted are the ones where are originally allowed, so we're adding traditional neighborhood and traditional neighborhood corridor. We did incorporate, and you will see this for the second reading if this amendment is approved. We did incorporate International Boulevard for the permitted thoroughfares. For pole and pylon signs, again, we also expanded the permitted zoning districts in which this particular sign is allowed, just to provide protection of visual clutter. We did restrict the traditional neighborhood corridor district with, by only allowing these types of signs along primary and secondary thoroughfares. That way, let's say 6th Street, it does not get compromised, or Elizabeth Street. And so we did increase the limit from 30 feet along major arterials and along the expressway or highways, 45 feet. And so the P&Z did recommend approval of this ordinance amendment.
Do you have any questions or comments?
I have a couple of questions on
Sure.
this. Let's go back 2 slides. Starting here, and I've got a concern, I don't know if the information we got is flawed, but here this has been represented as TNMU and TNC have been included in the list of permitted districts. But when we looked at what the old language was, they were already in there. And with this asterisk, what we're doing is restricting where in TNMU and TNC this can go. So this does not accurately reflect the changes that are being made from what I was given in my packet. So I'm trying to understand where the conflict is there.
In the packet, we included the original.
Right, and that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking in the original, it says permitted districts, TNMU, TNC, DTE, DTG, CC, RC, LI, HI, and there were no asterisks. Now asterisks are being added, which restricts TNMU and TNC. So that means that these are going to be eligible, or these are going to be allowable in fewer areas than they are today.
Wait, and Commissioner, just to clarify, when you say in the original, are you referring to the ordinance document?
No, in the packet, there was this document and then one that looked just like it that said the old, what is in place today, and this represents the new with the highlights. That's what I was looking at.
Well, as mentioned, the TNMU and the TNC, this type of sign is allowed. However, for the asterisk just mean that it will be limited along highways. So in this case, it says it will be, only be permitted along highway frontages for TNMU and TNC zoning districts.
Right, but the way this is on the screen, it says these two districts have been included in the list of permitted districts. That implies that they weren't there before and they are there now, and that's not the case.
And Commissioner, I'm asking Mr. Torino to pull up the actual ordinance. Whatever it's the wish of this commission for the ordinance to reflect, we will make sure that that's incorporated into the actual ordinance itself, any documents for the second reading. But we can make those clarifications today.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm understanding it right, because yeah, it looks like we're saying we're going to make this more permissive, but it's not what I'm reading when I look at what the information that's in the packet. Next slide. I want to understand why we're reducing the height so much on the maximum sign height, because I went from 50 feet to 30 feet, and then on highway from, I believe it was 80 or 85 now to, it was 85 now to 45, and we've got the added language of at overpass peak. What exactly does that mean?
So along the expressway, properties that have frontage along the expressway, looking at some of the taller signs around the city, that would be about the average height, 45 feet.
Mhm.
So based on those heights, we decided to put that limit also to prevent the visual clutter, or have something that's very high along the expressway, or that potentially extends further away from it and it starts, let's say, being invasive into maybe residential uses that are to the rear of those businesses that have frontage. But it was based just on an average. Now, the at overpass peak, it just means where the overpass of the expressway is at its highest.
So does that mean if my business is at the peak, I can put up a 45-foot high sign, but my competitor is not at the peak, he can't? Help me understand why that language is there and what it represents.
Right, so the peak again, it's at the highest point of the expressway.
Mhm.
And so we provided a higher elevation to not compromise the capability of advertising. Now, the expressway peak actually extends 1,000 feet. So at center point, at the tallest point of the expressway, all of them, if you measure them, 500 feet to the north and 500 feet to the south, that's where the lowest point or the point of inflection towards the highest peak point begins. So it's a total of about 1,000 feet where they would be permitted to have this 45-foot height. Now, at the end where, let's say it's at ground level, then that's where 30 feet would be the limitation.
Even though it's still the expressway, because it's at a low point, it's not considered a highway?
Well, it's a highway, but it's just at a lower point.
Commissioner, just if you think about sign heights in Brownsville along the expressway, most of our buildings are a single story of commercial development, probably
Mhm.
15-foot tall. And so our current ordinance allows a sign of 45 feet? What is 55 feet? Most businesses are putting up a sign that's a single story tall, unless you're at one of the overpasses, they're asking for about 2 or 3 stories, so that way those people that are away can visually see that sign. We've had 2, maybe 3 exceptions where the signs are actually 6 and 7 stories tall. There's
Mhm.
not very many of those in Brownsville. I don't think you want to have a standard that allows that tall of a sign. The one that I can recall that was approved was the go-kart. When that first opened, that was a variance to get that sign height to that level. And now the go-kart's gone and the used car lot is there and nobody uses a sign, but the pole is still there. It's unsightly, probably will never be removed. And so we don't know what the right number is. We know what the heights of the expressways are. We know what the average building is. We think if you're a single story building, you probably need a 2-story tall sign. You don't need a 3 or 4 or 5-story tall sign to reach the pass-by traffic. So what this does, it sets a standard if you're off the overpasses and a standard if you're near the overpass of 4 stories, right? 45.
And I think my concern comes in where competitors. If my competitor's at the peak, his sign's going to be higher. It's going to be easier to spot his business than it's going to be to spot mine. That's my concern.
Well, and if the commission wants to set an overall cap of 45 feet for everybody, we can easily do that.
There is a concern of abandoned pole signs, those big signs.
No, that I get. Abandoned
And
ones, I
sometimes it's so
completely
cost
get.
prohibitive to, for them to take it out because the piers or the columns. So, and it's really unfortunate because they're rusted out.
No, that I get, but I
So this is
remember as chair of Board of
for-
Adjustment, I saw cases where new business was coming to town and they were being told, no, you can't put up a sign that high. But your competitor who sells the exact same product right down the street has a sign that's that high. That's my concern.
If the
I think-
commission's more comfortable with the uniform standard, we certainly can draft that into the ordinance that everything along the expressways is.
Well, I think also it might be more prudent to consider how many times it's actually come up, and that's come up 2 or 3 times. So I think we can maybe take it on a case-by-case basis and consider an amendment if that situation occurs, right? Rather than just blanketly having, hey, anybody can put a crazy high sign up. Instead, maybe we go with the recommendation, and then we consider on a case-by-case, if there is a competitor situation, I'd certainly be inclined to approve something if somebody's at a disadvantage because of something like that. But otherwise, I think it comes up so little that it's probably not even something we want to think about, really.
And I'm pretty good with the newer heights. My biggest concern is that at overpass peak, just because that's creating a different standard. But I'd like to look at the ordinance between now and the next session to see if there's anything that answers my questions.
We have only a couple of applications pending. They can wait. If the commission wants to take more time to take a look at the ordinance, we could bring this back in January. It's up to the commission.
I don't have a problem with it, but I know that Texas Southmost College did have a concern or question about their intent, I think, to have a sign at some point. And I believe that would require an amendment, which you've discussed. So do we have to, if we do approve it, that amendment has to be incorporated into the motion?
You're talking about the property along International?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, so it would require the amendment.
Okay.
Mayor, Commissioners, if I may, I've heard the 2 concerns. The first concern, and if there are more concerns, I can add those, but for now, I've heard the TNMU and the TNC clarification and also maybe some more information as to the overpass peak provision. Because this ordinance requires 2 readings and not to delay it any further, I was thinking, well, one, you have 2 options. You could table this and get more information, or you could approve the first reading contingent upon having staff provide more clarification on those 2 TNMU and C and the overpass peak provisions. And then you could still receive that information, but if it's to your satisfaction at the second reading, you could pass it. And if not, you could table it at that point for more information, but you're not inadvertently postponing the action any further than
And I'd be
necessary.
good with that.
This is a public hearing.
I have a question. Regarding the poles that aren't being used and dilapidated signs, I think both are a big problem in town. What can the city do to enforce compliance with this ordinance to make sure that those poles or those signs are actually being kept up and maintained?
Well, the only way that these requirements are triggered are if, let's say, they want to repair voluntarily, or our code enforcement comes in whenever we have a complaint. So we act based on complaint.
So the code currently says that they have to maintain or use a sign pole as a sign for a sign. And if they're not using it, they need to take it down?
No.
So why are they allowed to keep a pole if they're not being used as a sign? It's just, I think it's very unsightly.
Rick, if we read it, if there's a non-conforming sign and then they go in and develop a new or construct a new restaurant, don't we require that they conform to the code and take the sign out?
Well, it's probably an enforcement issue more than anything if we want to aggressively pursue the removal of unused signs. In the cities that I've worked in, it's been very difficult to
It is
accomplish
difficult.
that.
You would have to
and
go
it
through a
makes
civil
become-
proceeding to get authority to step onto somebody's property and remove their property, but it is possible.
I just think it's a point to discuss and to evaluate how do we beautify our city, right? And I think that's something that's out there to improve on.
Yeah, that's a good point because I mean, if we regulate the putting up of the sign, we should at least have some discretion on regulating it staying there and being unsightly. So it's something to at least look at.
And we certainly have more police authority, I think, because we're in a windstorm zone, a hurricane zone, and we could use that as justification for removal, but we'll get together with legal and take a closer look and then look at our enforcement and see where we might bring some recommendations back for the commission to consider and for support for being a little more aggressive in our code enforcement on sign removal.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? This is a public hearing? Yes, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak on this item? We have a motion to close.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Do we have any motions on the item?
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Does that include the amendment to include international?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have items for individual consideration. Item number 1, consideration and action to award a contract to Robert Kistner to provide construction phase environmental support services for construction of joint tactical training facility at City of Brownsville Police Department firing range in the amount of $120,375.
Mayor, City Commissioner, Commander James Pascal. This item is to award environmental support services to Robert Kistner Incorporated in the amount of $120,375. In March of 2019, the City of Brownsville entered into an interlocal cooperation contract with the Texas Department of Public Safety for the development of a joint tactical facility, training facility. The training facility is intended to be used by the Texas DPS, Brownsville PD, county, and municipal law enforcement agencies. The state legislature provided DPS funding for this project in the 84th and 85th session for the purpose of developing a training center facility in Cameron County. The City of Brownsville provided 96 acres of property located at the northwest intersection of Southmost Boulevard and South Indiana Avenue. The property is currently a site for the BPD shooting range. This first slide is an aerial view of the entire property. The property was a solid waste landfill from 1966 to 1974 for the City of Brownsville. The police department converted the property into a shooting range in the mid-70s. Because the property was a closed landfill, we are required to adhere to environmental regulations under the Texas Commission of Environmental Quality, TCEQ, when developing and constructing the training facility. Here's a close-up view of the actual police range as it is today. We currently have a 25-yard pistol pad, obstacle course, 195-yard rifle range, and a classroom. The next slide is the master plan for the entire training facility. The entire facility is a $50 million project. Our current budget is $5.8 million. And we will be utilizing this funding to build a live threat engagement training facility. It's called LTET. This is a 4,000 square foot building where police officers train with real weapons in realistic shoot and don't shoot scenarios. It's a 2-story building with a 3rd floor attic, reachable doors and windows, and rappelling stations from multiple points on the roof. Here's the actual building. It's noted by an arrow at the bottom on the left. This is the actual building we'll be building. When we bidded out the project, we were over budget. In order to cut costs, we, the city, indicated we would cover environmental support services, which includes consulting, testing, excavating, and disposal of 2,500 cubic yards of soil. The police department is requesting the city commission authorize this funding through Fund 45 Capital Projects Fund through a general fund budget transfer at a mid-year budget amendment. I think it's important to note that once this building is completed, we will have a financial footprint for future state of Texas funding. We can also utilize our state senators and state representatives to solicit funding for our behalf to expand the training facility. I can't understate the importance of this one building by itself. Once this live threat engagement facility is in place, Brownsville will be the premier training center south of San Antonio for the entire South Texas region. Questions?
Do you have any questions? All right, do I have a motion to approve? We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Item number 2, consideration and action for the approval to award a contract to Rio Grande Hauling to provide excavation, loading, and hauling services in the amount of $50,480 for the Joint Tactical Training Facility at the City of Brownsville Police Department Firing Range.
Mayor, City Commission, this item is to award a contract to Rio Grande Hauling in the amount of $50,480. This agenda item runs in tandem with the previous agenda item with Robert Kistner. Rio Grande Hauling will be excavating 2,500 cubic yards of soil under the site of the live threat engagement facility. As stated in the last agenda item, the property was a solid waste landfill, and we are required to adhere to environmental regulations under TCEQ. We will be excavating 6 feet of soil under the site, move it approximately about 100 yards. Robert Kistner will be the intern, will be conduct testing on the soil. Once that's completed, Rio Grande Hauling will transport the soil to our city landfill for disposal. Police Department is requesting, again, that the City Commission authorize this funding through Fund 45 Capital Projects Fund through a general fund budget transfer at a mid-year budget amendment.
Motion to approve?
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Item number 3, consideration and action to approve a 3-year agreement with Gartner to provide research and actionable recommendations to advance the city's digital government transformation, which with cost first year not to exceed $100,124 as budgeted.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Jorge Cardenas here with the Enterprise Application Department. So today I'm here to, proposing, asking for you to approve the next, proposal to hire Gartner to get the research and advisory services. And mainly, as we all know, technology is moving very fast nowadays, and it is very hard to keep up. Right now, you can find, 10 different technologies do the same thing. And when you go to a vendor, they all tell you that they are the best, right? And in order to make a decision, us leaders, we have to do our due diligence to make sure that we pick the right product, the one that is gonna not only help us in the moment, but also help us in the future and help us expand and just grow as we know the city is trying to move to innovate and wants to become one of the best cities and most connected and smart cities in the state of Texas and hopefully soon in the country. So with that being said, we are currently in the process to modernize the IT infrastructure of the city of Brownsville. And in the next 3 to 5 years, there will be a lot of decisions that will be made, a lot of money that will be spent, a lot of contracts that will be signed. And I would really like to, propose this because Gartner will definitely help us reduce cost. It will help us reduce risk and save time. And I can tell you on the savings, right now I went to the Gartner Symposium about a month ago, and I engaged with the analysts they have. They have over 10,000 analysts that can help you with any technology that you want to look into, right? So when I went over there, I started looking into the cloud phone, cloud-based system. because our current call manager is very old, and I did my research when I got here, and it was gonna cost us around $800,000 to replace that call manager. So I did a little bit more research, and it went to 500,000. But then when I went to the symposium, I talked to all the analysts, and I was able to, put my thoughts together and decide to go with a cloud-based system that really is going to save us those 500,000 that we're going to spend on the call manager. The other one is the Microsoft licensing agreement. That one right now, I am in the process to try to renegotiate that contract to, reduce the cost there. And I'm thinking that I can save around $50,000 to $60,000 on that contract alone using the services and advice from Gartner. So, I think this is a great way to go for the next 3 years. And if we want to go create a smart city and make the right decisions and buy the right equipment, the right technology for the city.
I do have a question, which is, it's 100,000 a year over 3 years, so about 320,000 almost. But what they're really doing is kind of just providing oversight and kind of advice. How do you see that this is actually going to pay for itself? Do you not have this capability in-house?
So right now, we do not have the capability in-house. As you know, the IT department right now is very limited. And even if we had a full staff, I'll be the one making those hard decisions, and believe me, I can get it done. Now, the technology that we need right now is like that we need it right now. And in order for me, an example would be the call manager. It took me 4 months to decide to change that. But with Gartner services, I going to their, getting their advice, I was able to, reduce that time, right? The other one will be moving to the cloud. So it's just a lot of time that I have to spend on doing my due diligence to make a decision. So a 2-year plan can turn into a 3-4 year plan, right? But again, technology is moving fast. In 4 years, that decision that I'm going to make, I'm already going to be behind because it took too long to make a call.
So you think the return on this money, 100,000 per year, the return for you is better to have a consultant than to actually have that money available to hire more staff?
Well, the thing is, hiring more staff is not gonna help me decide. The staff is gonna, right now, do what we have or use what we have in house, right? We can take the time to fix and upgrade what we have, but at the end, we have to replace what we have. So that's what the staff are gonna be doing. The staff is gonna be focused on the day-to-day operation.
So you don't have anybody in-house or anybody that's able to tell you what coordinates with what and what to buy?
No, it's not that I don't have anybody. Like I said, right now on cloud services, I can go right now with Azure. I can go with Microsoft. With Azure, Microsoft, or AWS, or many other companies out there. So just taking the time to actually dig into what is really the industry using. Is it everybody going with Azure? Why they're going with Azure? And it's not cheap either. So making the decision is not going to be just or the staff in my department are going to be the ones making the decision. It will be me, and obviously with the help of them on the technical side. But in the long term, is going to be.
If I may add that, as a new director, Jorge has the budget to hire staff. He is going through a hiring process and identifying what that org chart should look like. Being a new director, he wanted to assess first what staff is needed. There were different types of classifications. And so he's going through that process now and also start hiring for that internal staff. I think at the end of the day, we want to train and mentor and have a succession planning for the enterprise applications department. But I think what he's saying is certain assessments need to be done quicker and faster now. And as you bring in staff, they're developed. But he does have a whole, as a newer director, we'll be coming back with you just to show you the different strategy behind that department and how they're staffing up to ensure that the maintenance and operations of all those programs, which are many, that, you know, how he's working to then be able to maintain all the applications and software that we're going to be implementing.
Sure, and I mean, since you've come on board, I can see that you're really kind of being very hands-on, trying to assess and trying to streamline and make things more efficient. That's obvious to me, and I think you've done a good job of that. I just am not really sold on the return that you're going to get, 400,000 a year over 3 years. That's just me, though. But I appreciate
No, definitely.
what you're trying to do.
Yes, sir. And then one thing is, like I said, right now, the example will be on the Microsoft licensing. So just going in there and negotiating with, using their analyst on what is it that, you know, we really need, not just, here's a quote of something, right? So it's just working with them and analyzing what we really need that's how I have used them before, and they have helped us, save money at the end.
So they help you review contracts or negotiate with service providers?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, see.
Yes.
Well, if there's no other questions, I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
A motion
Okay,
to approve, is there a second?
Can I make a clarification or just get a clarification? The way the item was posted, it was for a 3-year agreement with the cost of the first year not to exceed $100,924. But I think what the general consensus is that it's for the full funding of $317,785. Is that correct?
That's what my second is. Just need to confirm with Commissioner Galante if her motion includes that.
Sorry, what, or,
Because
If
it's
it's
for
the
3
3
years.
years or the 1 year.
Yeah, because the agenda item states it's for the first year, not to exceed 100,000. So I guess the clarification that Victor's asking for is your motion for all 3 years or only the first year as the agenda item reads?
well, but I would like to review it at the end of each year to see if the performance is okay. Or do we have to commit to 3 years? Can we do like 3 years for sure? But we have to review you every year, and if we like what you're doing, then you continue, otherwise we might back out.
We can do every year.
That's what I would vote for.
So it'd be for a 1-year contract, be reviewed year to year?
Yes.
Then Commissioner, the contract does include a non-appropriation provision. So in the event, the contract does include a non-appropriation provision. So at the end of the first year, the commission could simply defund the subsequent years of the contract.
Okay.
I wouldn't hang my
Yeah.
hat on that, but it is an option.
Okay, so then the item itself is the approval of a 3-year contract with the first year not to exceed 109,24. Commissioner Galante, you made the motion. Is that your motion, or do you need to amend any of that?
No, yes, as long as we're allowed to review their performance each year and subject to renewal. each
Okay.
year.
And Commissioner Dos Santos is your second?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? I'm a nay.
I'm gonna vote nay, because just, I feel like that could have funded an entire position.
Okay, so it's 5-2, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 4, consideration and action to approve resolution number 2022-082 to approve and enter into a multi-use agreement between the City of Brownsville and the Texas Department of Transportation to construct bus shelters along the state's right-of-way.
Mayor, City Commissioners, as we continue to work diligently on these project, we do have a agreement that we're required to do on all state right-of-ways. And so out of the 31 shelters that we have, 23 fall within the TxDOT right-of-way. And so this agreement will cease them of any liabilities. The construction and the maintenance of the facility or the bus shelter will be on the city side. And then to provide an update, we did complete the engineering design for the 31 shelters. That was submitted to us late last month. The shelters themselves were shipped from Germany to Houston, so they're now in Houston. We should have them here on site the first of the year, early the first week or two of January. And then we're now working on the construction bid document to be released also after the holidays. And so I know this commission wanted to see it, and so once we have that document, we will share that with the city commission.
I'm sorry, how many bus shelters were shipped from Germany to Houston?
31.
Wow, okay.
And do you know the timetable, Joel, on the approval for these 23?
The
Do you know-
timetable?
Yeah, do you know how long that takes to actually approve, or is the agreement
This
itself?
was approved here locally at the FAR district. And
Okay.
so the director of maintenance at the FAR office will approve it hopefully within 30 days.
Okay, great.
Right before the construction.
I move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
There's something I'd like to add. I don't know if this is, if I'm getting more on Southmost, but Southmost is another road that's on that's under the jurisdiction of TxDOT and it's not on the list. So you might want to include it in your
Yes.
list.
And there's another bus stop that I want to talk to you about, but we'll do that later. Now that we're making the list.
Okay, we did have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Consideration and action to approve First Amendment to Conference Center Operations and Conference Center Marketing Agreement.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Commission. I'm Monica Tallon with the Communications and Marketing Department, and I am here to present the First Amendment to the Conference Center Operations and Conference Center Marketing Agreement. This is the same presentation that you all saw a year ago. Nothing as for the hotel itself has changed. It was first executed February 2022. And again, everything for the agreement will stay the same here. We are, again, same content. It'll still be 150 rooms, and it'll be located on Morrison Avenue. I
I would
it's
add that
important-
it's our first full-service restaurant, hotel, just as a reminder.
and conference center. I'd like to review the economic impact really quickly. The total minimum investment is 27 million. And then here you all can see the 10-year projections with a property tax revenue of approximately 2 million, estimated sales tax of 268,000, and estimated city hot tax of just over 4 million. Through this agreement, the city will reimburse 100% of the project's hot tax, of the own project's hot tax over 10 years, not to exceed 4 million. So the economic impact for this project also has not changed. Here are the drawings, also subject to be reviewed by the city. And here we have the original language, which we are proposing to amend. For Article 2, Section 2.2, the construction date, the owner shall construct the hotel conference center using commercially reasonable diligence. Construction of the hotel conference center is anticipated to commence on or before December 31st, 2022. And then we have Article 2, Section 2.3, completion date, the anticipated completion of construction of the hotel conference is evidenced by the issuance of final certificate of occupancy by the city's building official that may occur 12 months after the construction date. So since we executed the agreement, the hotelier has experienced some challenges, being delayed engineering services, delayed surveying of property, and delayed plan approval by Hilton headquarters.
The engineering and services and surveying has to do with just the industry. There's a large market need for surveying and engineering. I think our own staff has experienced that. And so we've had to, and also the plan review by Hilton has been slow, right? They look at plans at every percentage of completion. So what we did is speaking with the developer, the hotel developer who definitely wants to go forward with the project and the same parameters as before, is asking for more time to be able to meet those performance standards rather than be in default. So we're trying to be proactive in amending it to something that can be performed. And so with that, there's a proposed amendment to the contract.
So here we have the amended language, Section 2, Article 2. Here we're adding milestones throughout the process, so that way we can also better monitor the progress of the hotel. So here you can see no later than the first quarter of 2023, submissions and approval by Hilton of 25% of plans. And this proceeds 25% per each quarter until 2024, when the hotel conference center is anticipated to begin construction. And then here we have Article 2, Section 2.3. The language is amend stating the anticipated completion of construction of the hotel conference center is evidenced by the issuance of the final certificate of occupancy by the city's planning redevelopment department that may occur 12 months after commencement of construction as described in Section 2.2. So that's all for the presentation. There's no cost associated with this item. So if there's any questions, we're here to answer.
Do we have any questions?
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And I'm going to abstain from that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Next item, we have board appointments. Item number 1, consideration and action on resolution number 2022-079 to appoint 1 new member to the Capital Improvement Advisory Committee, tabled on November 15, 2022.
So Mayor, back again for your appointment to the Capital Improvements Advisory Committee. We did some research, but that was forwarded to you with copy from city attorney, and so.
Okay. My original appointment was Bob Torres, who resigned. He's a Realtor, so I thought another Realtor. Therefore, my nomination is Craig Grove.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Item number 2, consideration and action on resolution number 2022-089 to reappoint 2 members to the Brownsville Convention and Visitors Bureau Advisory Board.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. We're going to request to table this item to our next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have a motion to table.
Second.
And a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
Item number 3, consideration and action on resolution number 2022-085 to appoint or reappoint 3 board members to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
So the highlights are the ones that need appointing?
Yes, they're either expired or resigned. Mr. Derek Benavides, he resigned in May. And Mr. Rubeno Bell and Aaron Rendon, they have expired terms. Now, Mr. Rendon didn't reapply. He doesn't wish to continue serving. Mr. Rubeno Bell did.
Okay. And how long are the terms?
3 years.
Okay. Well, I do have one there. Derek, I know resigned because of, I think, the financial statements, but I'll go ahead and nominate or ask that we appoint Lisa Vasquez, who's the first applicant. Oh, ETJ, does that mean she can still
Yes.
serve? Okay.
Yes, the code does allow.
Okay.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
And did you say that Mr. Obel did reapply?
Yes, sir.
Then I'll move to reappoint Ruben Obel.
Second?
We have a motion and a second for Ruben Obel. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Then,
I believe Commissioner Cowan gets the last pick.
well, it was, okay, yep.
Yeah, can I wait till the next meeting to make that appointment?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, it is now 7:38. If you want to make a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right. We're now in executive session.
The following items will be considered during executive session. Item number 1, closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code, sections 551.071, consultation with attorney, and section 551.072, real property related to potential exchange, lease, valuation, sale, or purchase, or real property generally located along east-south Rio Grande River, north of Power Plant Drive, Brownsville, Texas. Item number 2, closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code, sections 551.071, consultation with attorney to receive legal advice from legal counsel, and section 551.087, to deliberate economic development negotiations and financial information received for Project Domino. Item number 3, closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.071 to receive legal advice from legal counsel in Section 551.087 to deliberate economic development negotiations and financial information received for Project Lighthouse. Item number 4, closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.071 and 551.074 related to various legal issues regarding personnel matters. Item number 5, closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071 related to legal issues regarding the collective bargaining agreement with the police department.